sometimes I think we need similar motivation to where it's, we need somebody asking us, how bad do we want it? When, we think that there's something that would be good for us. Sometimes it's like we say we want something, but we're like telling ourselves it's going to be hard, so we're not really sure we want to put in that much effort. In some of those instances, we need somebody to come along and be like, all right, well, if you think that this is going to be so hard, just look at what you've got now, and is it really worth staying how you are and not doing, not working for this other thing, or would you rather have the thing that you're thinking you want? What's up, cool people? My name is Matt. Welcome back to our Bible study. All right. So, we are looking at Joshua chapter 17. Basically, a lot of the promised land has been conquered by the Israelites, and now Joshua and the elders are like dividing it up amongst the different tribes. There is still some land that has yet to be conquered, but I guess there's enough that they're dividing it now and saying, all right, if part of this area that we're allotting to a certain tribe has yet to be conquered, then, we can go conquer that too. That is part of the land that you're getting. Don't think we're giving you less just because it hasn't been conquered yet. But yeah, a couple of tribes have gotten their allotments already. Including last chapter, we talked about Ephraim, which is the tribe named after one of Joseph's sons. The other tribe is Manasseh, which we're going to talk partially about here, but that's a weird situation because half of that tribe already settled, or at least got their allotment, before even crossing the Jordan River into the main portion of the Promised Land that they've been conquering more recently. Anyway, so that tribe is the one that we'll be talking about in this chapter. So, here we go. Joshua, chapter 17. The next allotment of land was given to the half-tribe of Manasseh, the descendants of Joseph's older son. Machir, the firstborn son of Manasseh, was the father of Gilead. Because his descendants were experienced soldiers, the regions of Gilead and Bashan on the east side of the Jordan had already been given to them. So the allotment on the west side of the Jordan was for the remaining families within the clans of the tribe of Manasseh: Abiezer, Helek, Azrael, Shechem, Hefer, and Shemida. These clans represent the male descendants of Manasseh, son of Joseph. Okay, so you had the tribes that were based on the 12 sons of Jacob / Israel. And then you've got like sort of clans within those tribes that are based on the sons or grandsons of those of the men whose names were, or the men after whom the tribes were named. So their sons, or possibly grandsons in this case, were probably the ones that were then, the namesakes of the clans within those tribes. But anyway, so as I already mentioned, part of the tribe of Manasseh already had settled. But then the other clans within the tribe of Manasseh, or actually half tribe, because Manasseh was technically only half the tribe because Manasseh and Ephraim were both sons of Joseph. Joseph was the full tribe. Those were like half tribes, but because the way that the land winds up being divvied out, there's 12 tribes or half tribes within the divisions, only because Levi, which would have been one of the tribes, doesn't actually get a full-on designated portion of land for themselves. They instead are split out amongst the other tribes, or spread out, I should say, in certain cities that each of those tribes would designate. Let's move on to verse 3. However, Zelophehad, a descendant of Hepher, son of Gilead, son of Machir, son of Manasseh, had no sons. He had only daughters whose names were Mahlah, Noah, Hoglah, Milcah, and Tirzah. These women came to Eleazar the priest, Joshua son of Nun, and the Israelite leaders and said, "The Lord commanded Moses to give us a grant of land along with the men of our tribe." So Joshua gave them a grant of land along with their uncles, as the Lord had commanded. As a result, Manasseh's total allocation came to 10 parcels of land, in addition to the land of Gilead and Bashan across the Jordan River, because the female descendants of Manasseh received a grant of land along with the male descendants. The land of Gilead was given to the rest of the male descendants of Manasseh. Okay, so the wording of some of that stuff there has me a little bit confused, but there was previously, I think in Deuteronomy, mention of the whole situation with Zelophehad. Feel free to just look up that name and get more information on that situation, but it kind of lays it out here that he has no sons, so his daughters are given some land because of that, because they wanted to still have some portion of land, you know, that their father would otherwise have gotten. Verse 7. The boundary of the tribe of Manasseh extended from the border of Asher to Michmethath, near Shechem. Then the boundary went south from Michmethath to the settlement near the spring of Tappuah. The land surrounding Tappuah belonged to Manasseh, but the town of Tappuah itself, on the border of Manasseh's territory, belonged to the tribe of Ephraim. From the spring of Tappuah, the boundary of Manasseh followed the Kana ravine to the Mediterranean Sea. Several towns south of the ravine were inside Manasseh's territory, but they actually belonged to the tribe of Ephraim. In general, however, the land south of the ravine belonged to Ephraim, and the land north of the ravine belonged to Manasseh. Manasseh's boundary ran along the northern side of the ravine and ended at the Mediterranean Sea. North of Manasseh was the territory of Asher, and to the east was the territory of Issachar. You know what, just because this is still indented here, I'll read verse 11 as well. The following towns within the territory of Issachar and Asher, however, were given to Manasseh: Bethshan, Ibleam, Dor, that is Nephoth Dor, Endor, Tanakh, and Megiddo, each with their surrounding settlements. Okay, so I guess it's mentioning some of that kind of stuff because there were, as it says here, towns within the territory of Issachar and Asher, but those towns specifically were given to Manasseh. And I guess there was a bit of kind of boundary crossing for some of these things. Not entirely sure why that was the case. But, I mean, geographic boundaries are not always, smooth. So, it might just be an attempt to explain some of that kind of thing going on. Footnote there, Hebrew just says the sea instead of the Mediterranean Sea. It's assumed, though, that it was the Mediterranean. Footnote of Beth-shan. Hebrew says Beth-shean, but that might just be a variation of the spelling. Because, well, okay, so, like, actual original Hebrew does not have vowels. There might have been, sort of later versions of Hebrew that include vowels, and maybe some of that is where, some of the original documents, or whatever you want to call it, that was used for translation purposes here, and that kind of thing. But yeah, in general, like, the original Hebrew that this probably would have been written in, at least at first, didn't even have vowels, so, like, trying to assign vowels to it is just kind of a weird process, I guess you might say. I mean, obviously they would try and put that in based on pronunciation, at least in part. But yeah, it's... I don't want to say educated guesswork, but maybe a step or two of sophistication above that. Anyway, footnote at... the meaning of the Hebrew here is uncertain when it mentions door/Naphoth door. Okay. But there might be other manuscripts that they used in the translation that got them to the text that we see here. Anyway, a lot of that section was just talking about boundaries and whatnot for the land going to the western part of Manasseh. Whoa, didn't mean to highlight all that. Okay. And I guess from there we'll move on to verse 12. But the descendants of Manasseh were unable to occupy these towns because the Canaanites were determined to stay in that region. Later, however, when the Israelites became strong enough, they forced the Canaanites to work as slaves, but they did not drive them out of the land. Okay. So, since it mentions a later portion, it's, I guess, kind of assumed that, like, where they were at this point in time, and maybe shortly thereafter, is when Manasseh wasn't able to... Okay. Now, when it says these towns, is it referring to... I guess it would be referring to, like, these ones up here? And not, like, this whole area? That would make the most sense to me. But then I guess eventually they were able to occupy those towns, even if they didn't completely drive the Canaanites out. They just kind of took over and, as it says here, forced the Canaanites to work as slaves. So it's right there. Kind of similar, I guess, to what happened in chapter 9 with the Gibeonites and that sort of thing, although maybe not necessarily with a peace treaty involved. But I will say, since we're on the topic of not being able to drive people out of the land, some of this stuff is kind of important to note, because these are the people that can wind up giving them troubles later on in the Old Testament. Basically intermarrying in some cases, or having the culture and deities of those other people groups kind of seep in to what the Israelites were doing. So, yeah. Take note of these kinds of things, because that's, it becomes a bit of a problem later. Anyway. Okay, verse 14. The descendants of Joseph came to Joshua and asked, "Why have you given us only one portion of land as our homeland when the Lord has blessed us with so many people?" Joshua replied, "If there are so many of you, and if the hill country of Ephraim is not large enough for you, clear out land for yourselves in the forest where the Perizzites and Rephaites live." The descendants of Joseph responded, "It's true that the hill country is not large enough for us, but all the Canaanites in the lowlands have iron chariots, both those in Bethshan and its surrounding settlements, and those in the valley of Jezreel. They are too strong for us." I'll just continue to the end here. Then Joshua said to the tribes of Ephraim and Manasseh, the descendants of Joseph, "Since you are so large and strong, you will be given more than one portion. The forests of the hill country will be yours as well. Clear as much of the land as you wish, and take possession of its farthest corners. And you will drive out the Canaanites from the valleys too, even though they are strong and have iron chariots." So they're saying that they didn't get enough land. Joseph responds by basically saying, all right, well, go and conquer this land. Yes, there's still people, there's still other people living there, but you're all strong, and by your own admission, you have a large enough number of people. Go and get rid of them. But they seem unsure of themselves. But Joshua is kind of reassuring them still that they can do it. Kind of in a different way, encouraging them much in the way that he was encouraged by God earlier on to, be strong and courageous. Multiple times throughout this book, as we call it, of Joshua, there's been reassurance from God and or from Joshua saying, hey, look, this might seem tough, but we got this. And that's pretty much what's going on here. So, in a way, it almost could be thought of as Joshua's not necessarily buying their excuse, though. So, yeah, it's basically all right, well, you've been given this land that's already conquered. I'm giving you more land. How bad do you want it? Sometimes I think we need similar motivation to where it's, we need somebody asking us, how bad do we want it? When, we think that there's something that would be good for us that is, sometimes even if it's not obvious that it's God's will for us, but in either case, sometimes it's we say we want something, but we're telling ourselves it's going to be hard, so we're not really sure we want to put in that much effort, in some of those instances, we need somebody to come along and be like, all right, well, you say you want it. How bad do you really want it? Like, if you think that this is going to be so hard, just look at what you've got now, and is it really worth staying how you are and not doing, not working for this other thing? Or would you rather have the thing that you're thinking you want? Anyway, enough about that. That's really kind of all the thoughts I have on this chapter. All right, so got the tribe of Manasseh fully figured out here. I mean, half of it was established before they really even crossed the Jordan River as far as what portion of land they would get. But now we've got the rest of the tribe of Manasseh. And, yeah, so I guess that covers what? Reuben, Gad, all of Manasseh. And then, well, I mean, the Levites kinda, but they don't count in terms of all this stuff because they don't get a portion of land. So then we've got Judah and Ephraim. So those have been decided already, which I'm pretty sure means we've got 7 left. Because it's still, even though the Levites don't get a specific allotment of land in this, because of splitting the tribe of Joseph into Ephraim and Manasseh, there's still 12 overall tribes in the allotment. Even though Manasseh is split, which kind of means there's 13 divisions of land, but details. Anyway, I'm overthinking this. And before I continue overthinking this, I might as well wrap this up. So, if you enjoyed the video, give it a like, share it with others if you want them to see. If you're on YouTube, subscribe to the channel and click the bell to get updates when I post new videos. If you're seeing this over on Rumble, feel free to give me a follow there. Either way, look down in the description to get info on other social media pages and all that good stuff. And leave comments down below there with any thoughts you have. So that's going to do it for now. Hope you're all doing well. Hopefully I'll see you soon for another video. But whatever the case is, till next time, stay cool, people.